Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you may be across the world. Thanks so much for joining us live here today for Serverless Office Hours, the best part of serverless all week, I kind of think, streaming live on the AWS Twitch channel and on the Serverless Land YouTube channel, and also via LinkedIn Live. I'm Julian Wood. I'm a senior developer advocate for serverless at AWS, and I'm super duper happy to be joined by Kamen Sharlandjiev and Shreya Mishra, who from AWS Integration Services. How on earth are both of you? And I'm going to stick up their details so you can see who they are, which I had forgotten to do. There we go. We've got Kamen and Shreya. Thank you so much for joining us. Kamen, you are on the other side of London from me, so we're in the same time zone, so we can fire wave in that direction, that east of me. And I think what Kamen, you've been at AWS nearly a year and a half. Is that true?
I'm close to 2 years now.
Close to 2 years.
Yeah. But
well, and one of your bios I read says you like baking sourdough bread and making pancakes. And now that sounds like something I'd be interested in.
Yeah, that's my retirement plan, to open a bakery.
Oh, I'm coming. I'll cross London for that any day. I certainly have a penchant for anything baked goods. That's my weakness. Cool. And Shreya, you joining us from Seattle, and from what I read about you, you enjoy biking, hiking, strolling in the woods, and enjoy even a quiet evening with some music and your paintbrush. So you artistic as well. That's
yes, that's my plan for surviving the Seattle winters since I cannot wait.
Sounds good. But you've been at AWS also a year. Was that a year and a half, or have I got that wrong?
Yes, I am just about closing a year and a half.
Cool, excellent. And so just when we talk about AWS Integration Services, what are they? What do they cover, and what do you do?
So AWS Integration Services is basically, we cover a lot of services in this umbrella: EventBridge, step functions, MWAA, which is managed workflows for Apache Airflow, AppFlow. So basically, they are like the key to kind of integrate. The point being, they are key to integrate with other services like Lambda, like step. So yeah. So integration services is like a separate umbrella within serverless.
So you are the integration services is the glue that holds AWS together.
Yes, I mean, we integrate. We would like to be, but yes, definitely sounds like fun, because we like to integrate with a lot of other services. So it's not just limited to one or two services. They are kind of like the glue to get your stuff integrated with a lot of other services, containers, analytics services, and so on.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I love the intro. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a quick look back on the previous week of AWS Serverless, and then we're going to jump right into some cool demos and some cool stuff that Kamen and Shreya are going to talk about. Last week was Step Functions Week. This was really fun with a great demo from Dheeraj and Sam as well, talking about local mocking service integrations. Wow, I bumbled over that. But yeah, if you're using step functions, you want to test your step functions out locally, well, this can mock a whole bunch. In fact, nearly all service integrations were via the SDK, which was something that I didn't know you could do. It's something that has come out recently and seems so simple. I absolutely loved it. In terms of other kind of things, it seems to be storage week in terms of AWS. There's some cool stuff from S3, the batch replication to synchronize existing data between buckets. So previously S3 batch replication was for new data, and now you can do it for the stuff you've already got. And yeah, two things from EFS, super duper speed. That sounds really cool. Sub-millisecond read latencies for EFS, and then also introducing some replication for EFS to join some of the cool stuff from S3. Looking at compute blogs, well, top of the one we obviously have to talk about this week is building custom connectors for Amazon AppFlow, which Kamen was involved in. And then we've also got, capturing client events from Tim Bruce with API Gateway and EventBridge. A blog post all going through the step functions, local mocking integrations from Sam and Dheeraj. And then two new things, or one new thing from this week is a sort of an AWS virtual waiting room. And this is an interesting blog post. It's not sort of quite a brand new announcement of something, but a really cool way that Justin, Joan, and Jim have put together a way that if you've got websites that need to do virtual queuing, think of like COVID vaccinations, all these kind of things, they've come up with a really cool serverless solution to be able to do that for that. And then not tooting my own horn, but if you are looking at saving some money for your Lambda-based applications, then you'd be well placed to look at ARM-based Gravelbox on 2.1s. And I did a blog on how to do some migrations. But that was the last week. Let's talk about all the new stuff. So Amazon AppFlow Custom Connector SDK. But yeah, I think we need to find out a little bit more about Amazon AppFlow first. So Kamen, were you going to share your screen, or Shreya? It was Kamen, I think.
Ladies first.
Ladies first, Shreya. Absolutely, I like that.
I will share my screen right here. Okay, please tell me when you can see my screen.
It'll pop up shortly. And yes, of course, because we're live on Serverless Office Hours, please send us your questions, your comments throughout. We'll pop them up on screen, and we're more than welcome to hear from you. We love to hear where you are, where you're sitting watching this from. Tell us your favorite serverless stories, anything like that. We'd absolutely love to hear from you. This is Serverless Office Hours. It's interactive. So yeah, please keep your questions coming. And if we can't answer them today, even with the experts we do have line, not a problem. We can get back to you. And yeah, some things we don't know. Well, some things I don't know. I think Shreya and Kamen probably know it all. So please tell us about Amazon AppFlow.
All right. I hope everybody can see my screen now.
Yes, we can.
Great. All right, Julian, as you said, so we are here today to talk about how you can build custom connectors using the recently launched AppFlow Custom Connector SDK. And before we deep dive into, how do we actually build custom connectors? Yes, let's take a step back into what is AppFlow. And I'll take, I'll give a brief description of what is AppFlow? How does the service even help customers? So we always work backwards from our customers at Amazon. And in speaking to our customers, we heard a lot of things, but more specifically, they highlighted challenges with data integration, real-time data synchronization, performance optimization. Our customers, they needed something to modernize their aging custom-built integration, and so that they can make them more agile and kind of innovate faster to keep up with their customer demands. So that is what led our product team to develop Amazon AppFlow. For those of you who don't know, it's a service we released about 2 years ago. It's a fully managed bi-directional data transfer service that helps you get data between SaaS applications and AWS. What it does is you can define your data flow requirements via configuration. And what I mean by that is you can select a source. So source can be a SaaS application, or the source can be AWS since it's bi-directional. So you select a source, you select a destination, and you specify when is it that you want to move the data. Do you want to move it on a schedule? Do you want to move it based on an event? Or do you want to actually move it on demand? And once you define that, you can also define the process or do some minor data transformations like concatenating the data or validations and things like that. And once you do specify all this, AppFlow takes on the task of provisioning the resources that are needed to execute this flow. And AppFlow will orchestrate your resources and execute it when triggered. So, once you do set up your data flow, do some minor transformations, you can really bring your data to a ready-to-use state for any kind of downstream processing or doing any analytics, AIML with the data.
So what kind of SaaS applications, or what kind of things would you kind of connect? I know you've got some good use cases over here, but in terms of products and features. And then secondly, within that is some people think of SaaS applications, and they're already thinking Amazon Event Bridge. How does AppFlow fit into this world?
Yeah, so when we talk about SaaS applications here, right now, we have about 23 connectors with AppFlow, and we do plan to kind of scale it to a lot more by the end of this year and next year. And when I say SaaS applications, we're really talking about ERP applications like SAP, or CRM applications like Salesforce, or even applications like Google Analytics, Viva, so data, Dynatrace, Marketo, Slack, and the list is on. So these are the SaaS applications, and you can connect them with AWS services like S3 or Redshift, and even places like EventBridge. So when I'm talking about AWS and SaaS applications, it's really a whole world that you can now connect with AppFlow.
Okay, excellent. And yeah, Alpa Codes, thank you for joining us, Alpa Codes. Welcome back. Yeah, so he was also, how does it compare to batch and glue and step functions?
Sure.
So, Services like Glue and AppFlow, the difference is that AppFlow really connects SaaS applications, and it's really like a data transfer service. And later on, we will do a deep dive. And Kamen, I'm sure he can speak more about how the service works and how you can how SDK differs and how it helps you to connect these applications.
Cool, excellent. Well, please carry on.
All right. So what I was saying is, the point of this fully managed service is to really help customers bring in their data into like a central repository or a central data lake, however you want to call it, so that you can do more with the data. Because bringing data into a central place is really the beginning of the use case for many of our customers. When we talk to our customers like Expedia, they use AppFlow for effective data synchronization, and it helped them optimize costs by 40%. And talking about costs, AppFlow has a zero licensing fee, so it offered a significant amount of savings to our customers. And here is the interesting, I know we talked about SaaS applications and services that AppFlow supports. So this is just a snapshot. As I said, we are planning to scale to a lot more. But today, the whole idea of speaking around building custom connectors with SDK, we literally give our customers the tools to extend the service so that you can have a single repository of your data. And the custom SDK really provides a mechanism for developers to build and deploy your own AppFlow custom connectors, so you can connect to private APIs, on-prem proprietary systems, and other cloud applications and services by adding to AppFlow's library of connectors. So let's move on and really jump in and deep dive, where Kamen will walk us through the process of building the custom connectors with AppFlow using Java SDK. Kamen, the floor is all yours.
Thanks, Shreya. And yeah, just before we start, Julian, I just want to say you did a really good try to get my surname right. Imagine I have to spell this every day on the phone. So yeah,
I can imagine. I'm lucky. I'm just Wood, but some people call me Woods as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
I always say, well, there's only one of me, but anyway.
But yeah, hi everybody. I'm really excited to join you today on this call. Sharlandjiev is my surname, and yeah, I talk a lot with customers every day, big enterprise customers, and also small and medium enterprises, startups, and so on. And often, kind of the audience I talk with is separated in two different streams, right? On the one hand, we have the business leaders, and they often are very much like Amazon AppFlow because of its low code and no code capabilities. So they give the tool to business analysts and data analysts and people without general technical knowledge can quickly orchestrate and execute data ingestion. But more and more, I started talking now with technology leaders. And when you talk with technology leaders, they're with a complete different set of problems which they need to solve. And often I get questions like, Kamen, how do I retire my technical debt? How do I get rid of this legacy code which is sitting here and is taking a lot of efforts to keep maintained and so on? And when you think of it from a kind of application integration perspective, that's where we position AppFlow as a big win. And simply because you can retire a very large chunk of integration code and use AppFlow not as a low-code, no-code solution, but as any other AWS service. You can use it as a microservice with a powerful set of APIs, which you can implement under the hood within your application. And suddenly with one API integration with one service, you get exposure to these 23 connectors that we kind of offer under the service. And not only that, it's actually getting even better because the service is PCI compliant, so we have some compliance there, and it's actually designed to move data on a massive scale in a secure and compliant way. So a lot of technology leaders which are concerned about compliance and regulatory kind of things are also happy to use the service. Now, when you think of it about AppFlow and when you think about our customers, the good thing about our customers is they always want more. So they want more custom connectors, they want more functionality within the service, and they want to do more generally with the service. So that's cool. And that's where we actually the service team have been working very hard last year to actually give this custom connector SDK. So I'll share my screen. I don't have slides, so I'll keep it more on the technical side. Let me move the screen first. So can you see my screen? Just
I will bring it up on the thing.
Awesome. Yeah, so like I said, we recently, just beginning of February, we announced the Custom Connector SDK, and with that we actually gave the right tools to our developer community and our builders for them to be able to use those SDK and build their own custom connectors. Now, this opens up a lot more possibilities now with AppFlow, because how cool it is, Julian, you tell me how cool it is for a developer to be able to extend a native AWS service, right?
Yeah, always good.
We do have something similar with other services, but they're more generally on the open source space, where this is a native AWS service, and we now give the possibility for our developers and friends to build on top of it. And the SDK actually comes into flavors, right? So we released it as an open source project. It's available in our GitHub repository, and we have it both in a Java version, if you fancy Java, and we have Python. For the moment, we don't have Node.js. I do hope the team will consider something like this, but we'll see how it goes, right? And reading to the news, I was saying, oh gosh, that's a really good thing. What is the first connector I want to build using the SDK? And because I talk a lot with customers, right? And I've always had often have the question, how do we connect to a database? So with AppFlow, and I can show it on the AWS console, with AppFlow, the way you connect to a SaaS application and bring data in AWS happens really fast. But often bringing the data is just the beginning of the story, right? No matter whether you're doing it with the AWS console or you are implementing it as part of your application, once you get the data, you want to do more with the data. And that's where the entire ecosystem of AWS Integration Services comes in place, right? And yeah, I said to myself, okay, well, I'm not a Java developer, I'm not a Python developer, but let's give it a go. I will have some skills with Node.js, have some skills with PHP and other programming languages in the past. So I've decided to build a connector using the Java SDK. Julian, what do you think? Do you think before we dive into the actual SDK, maybe we can walk through the console and quickly build the flow and execute it?
If that works for you, sounds good. Kamen, you're the expert.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So let's go and see what's available currently in the the AppFlow under the hood, right?
By the way, I've just put there were two blog posts that Kamen was referencing over there. The what do we call the What's New post, and then the blog that Kamen put together, which I'm just pasting now, and that's got a lot of the detail we're talking about now, but obviously not with Kamen and Shreya's awesome live participation.
Yeah, and I need to say here a special thanks to Diraj and Ray who
yes,
helped
Diraj. I think Diraj is on the chat as well, so Diraj did say hi. So yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, any of the hard questions is Diraj there Diraj is in the chat to help us out.
Yeah, so without his help, probably we wouldn't manage to bring the blog post in such a short notice. So thank you both for all the devotion and all the work here. So Amazon AppFlow, actually, like we said, is part of our application integration.
Can I just pause you over there? Are you able to just zoom in a bit on your screen? Some of us older people at the back are going to struggle to see some of the smaller fonts.
Is that good enough?
One more if you can. Some of our consoles I know go a little crazy when they get too big, but
is that good?
Yeah, I think we can read AppFlow and we can go from there and see how we go.
So apologies, I'll look at this direction from time to time because this is where I see all your faces because I've moved it obviously because I'm sharing my screen. So I do apologize for that. But yeah, you can see AppFlow in the application integration ecospace, right? So we have a couple of services here which you can use to actually build a cohesive and kind of a full integration application. And I really hope we have some time at the end. I can probably show how Amazon AppFlow fits into this ecosystem, right? Not as a lone service, but maybe we can touch on some other services. But generally speaking, when we talk about AppFlow, there are two specific things which you need to implement, whether through an API or through the console. And the first one is the actual connector profile. So this is where you actually define a connection to a SaaS application. So let's say we're going to integrate with Salesforce, for example, right? Well, I have few kind of connectors, but let's quickly create one. Now, each connector has its own specifics. I'm not going to get into too much details, but when you create the connector, you can see this screen, and there will be different options for different authentication mechanisms and so on. In terms of kind of Salesforce, it's an OAuth process. So you just, it launches the OAuth window and asks you to allow kind of Amazon AppFlow embedded login application to be installed in your Salesforce application. And that's how we communicate going forward to exchange, refresh, and access tokens. Now, once you have this done, once you have the connector done, you need to define flow. So the flow is actually the piece which takes the information and brings it into AWS or move it to a destination, right? It uses the connector, but it's the flow. So you can have as many flows as you want and use the single connector. Now, later on, we will see that we will define our own connector, right? Because here we are working with the managed connectors, which are available on the actual service. So in this case, choosing a Salesforce, we'll choose our connector, and then we need to select the object that we want to ingest. Now, there are several flavors here. We can ingest events, platform events from Salesforce and so on. But let's say for the kind of the simplicity of things, we're going to ingest, let's say, our accounts. And then we're going to do this into, well, we have several options here. We can push it to another Salesforce instance or use different kind of destinations. Very popular one, of course, S3, because from there on, you can actually orchestrate a lot more ETLs.
So S3 can be an event trigger to,
correct.
anything that can then react to that, and you can do your ETL or your transformations or copy it elsewhere.
Yes, exactly. And actually, AppFlow is integrated with EventBridge. So every time we kind of create a flow, execute the flow completes with the data, it will actually emit event into the default event bus. And you can actually create a rule saying, okay, if the source is AWS AppFlow, and you can do different rules there. You can actually kickstart downstream processing, which could be anything. It could be a Lambda function, it could be a step function, it could be any other service. Now, step 3 of the flow, mapping between source and destination. Now, if here we had a different destination, obviously it will have different fields and different types. But in case of S3, we just map all, right? So, and we get all the data into AWS. Right. We can create filters, so we can filter the data set that we want to take. In this case, I'm not going to do it, but that's also kind of a nice capability within the service. And that's it. Final step, you just review what you've done, create a flow, and then you just execute it, and you get your data into AWS. Now, customers love that, right? So it's a serverless technology. They don't manage any servers. They don't manage any integration between Salesforce and AWS, for example, or any other SaaS provider. In a matter of a couple of seconds, you can get your data into AWS.
And I love that also the data transformation and the filtering is built so simply into the system that you don't have to then run a Lambda function to do that, or use something like VTL. And I love the mapping of the source and the destination and how easy it is to put it all together. Yeah,
no, it's made so from a UI perspective, it's made with this low code, no code kind of idea in mind. But then when we go to the APIs, it's even better, because how much time it took me to build this flow? Like 2 minutes? Well,
you were talking a lot.
Yeah, and using the APIs, I will actually do it in 10 seconds, right? Because I'm just going to say, create a connector profile, create a flow, execute the flow, and kind of get my data, right? So far, so good, right? So we have AppFlow, we have all these connectors. The team is working super hard this year. They want to bring a lot more connectors. But we also gave this SDK to the customers and to the actual developers, and we asked them, okay, go and build and have some fun with the SDK. Provide us with some feedback. Push some pull requests into our GitHub repository. So I've decided to embark on a journey. I took the Java SDK. And I decided that a really good first example would be if I create a JDBC connector, right? Because database, it makes sense, really. I don't know why the team didn't actually deliver this at first place. Probably because the working backwards kind of mechanism we implement in our peculiar way of working. But databases sounds like a really obvious choice to me. So I kind of cloned the SDK. From the kind of the blog post, you can see they have links to the SDK, and the SDK actually has with a very good, well documented kind of README, and we also have our documentation on the AppFlow documentation page. But essentially, kind of the way AppFlow works. The Custom Connector SDK works is you need to implement 3 simple interfaces and the methods within these interfaces in order to provide this kind of a way for the service to communicate with your functionality. Now, the functionality itself is built and deployed as a Lambda function. So it's a serverless compute. You build it to a serverless application model. And I'll show this in a minute. And then your job here as a developer, as a builder, is to get the SDK and focus on the business problem, how to translate the API on the underlying service that you want to integrate and translate this into a normalized interface which AppFlow expects. So that's your job. And as part of this, like I said, there are 3 main interfaces we need to do. And maybe I'll switch on the blog post because I'm slightly biased towards the great work we did with Dirash and Ray. But we kind of...
Can we just do another zoom in or 1 or 2, please?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there you go. So there are 3 interfaces which you need to install, and I think we've listed them here. Yeah, but essentially, you need to deal with the configuration of your connector. So the first piece which you saw where I was creating the connector, and the way you need to do this is Amazon AppFlow actually supports under the hood the common authentication mechanisms such as OAuth, basic OAuth, and API key, and so on. But when you build something more custom, like JDBC, for example, databases, then the team have thought about it, and it actually provides you with a way to build your own custom authentication mechanism. So that's what I had to do in order to connect to the database. But in case you have a use case with OAuth, you don't have to implement the actual OAuth mechanism for kind of retrieving tokens or refreshing tokens when they expire and so on. This can be done through the service, and you can propagate an error back to the service, and it will do it for you. So essentially, don't reinvent the wheel, focus on the business problem and the actual implementation. So the way the workflow goes, right? So you get the SDK, you can take it as a dependency from Maven, for example, if you're using Java, or you need to clone it as a source code with Python and so on. But essentially, you build a Lambda function, traditional Lambda function, whether in Python or Java, and then you need to deploy it into AWS. And we have provided the SAM template as part of kind of the solution. And within the SDK, it comes with an example connector, which is happens to be Salesforce. So it's quite extensive. It shows you the use case of entire kind of integration between develops a connector as a source and also as a destination, and shows you how to implement things like incremental query models, filtering, and so on and so on. In this blog post, and the JDBC connector also implements some of this logic, but I've tried to keep it a little bit more simple so I can give it to our developers and our builders to actually use it as a boilerplate, right? So it's something lean and kind of simply implements the interfaces, which you can take quickly and build on top of it and have some fun and kind of maybe reduce some of the heavy lift for you. At least I hope so. So you deploy in AWS as a Lambda function, and then you register this Lambda function within AppFlow as a connector. And then AppFlow already knows that you have a custom connector, and then it actually shows in the drop-down menu. Now, when it comes to a custom connector, here is the cool thing. You can develop this in 3 different ways as of today. So you can develop and deploy it and use it as a private connector, which will be available only into your AWS account. You can also, of course, share it with other AWS accounts with AAM. But the cool thing is, if you manage to develop a connector for a very well-known SaaS application, which is with a lot of demand, it's not available with the service and so on, you can actually publish this into the AWS marketplace and either do it for free and share it with all the AWS and Amazon AppFlow customers. But you can also have charge a subscription fee, so you can start monetizing out of your work. So it's a nice way to kind of, I don't know, get side income from somewhere. Maybe I'll publish this one and get some retirement money, Julian.
You've got the bakery to cover you, so
yes,
you're not making millions from this. You're covered. I'm glad you've got many plans.
A lot of business ideas, yes. So the simple application I've built is also available into GitHub. So Julian, I can probably give you the link if you don't have it, but it is in the blog post, so you will be able to you will be able to see it. So.
Come on, just before we go into the Alpaca, thanks again for your question. Just for an understanding thing, you implement 3 interfaces. The SDK creates a Lambda function using SAM. What's the benefit of the additional layer of abstraction as opposed to just creating the Lambda function directly?
Sure. So in order for the actual AWS service to kind of talk with your Lambda function, there need to be some sort of a common understanding of what the request will look like, right? So your Lambda function needs to understand what are the different requests, because as part of creating a connector or creating a flow, AppFlow will actually invoke this Lambda function several times with several different requests. And this could be something like, give me all the kind of the credential fields which we need to present to the user when they're creating the connector. Things like, if you think of JDBC, that will be the host name, the port of the database, username, password, initial database, and things like that. And then when you're creating a flow, it will invoke the same Lambda function saying, give me the list of all the databases, so give me the list of all the tables. When someone selects a table, it will say, give me the fields of all this table, right? So there are many things which, many times which your Lambda function will be invoked. And obviously, in order for AppFlow to be able to understand your output, that will need to happen to a kind of a normalized interface. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, if not, Alpaca, let us know. I suppose maybe one of the other parts of it is, if you're talking about the additional layer of abstraction being SAM, I presume you could use this with any infrastructure as code tool or create the Lambda function manually and tie it all together. I mean, you don't have to use SAM to do this together, but obviously SAM is going to be pretty simple to show it off. So if that's your additional layer of abstraction you are talking about, then yeah, I think you can create the Lambda function in any other way you want as well, because ultimately it's CloudFormation under the hood.
Yeah, thanks for bringing me back on the topic, Julian. Yeah, actually, so there are several things, very few but important things within this SAM template. So it's the actual Lambda function itself, but also the policy that we need to attach to this Lambda function in order for your Lambda function to be able to be invoked by the AWS service, right? So that's kind of an important thing. So okay, so what I'll do is I'll actually clone the repository from here, and I'll just import it from git clone. Okay, good. And then
the screen is super small, but that doesn't matter, does it? Because we don't need to see a git clone, but maybe in the IDE stuff.
Yeah. Let me try to do this. So call me old fashioned. I'm using Eclipse, but yeah. So downloads, and then we had the connector. So I'll just import the project and see how I can actually make it bigger for you guys, because I'm not sure.
It's a nicely impressive big screen I think you've got. We all slightly jealous on our side,
Okay,
on my side at least.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. So I'll quickly show the SAM template. So it's a super simple SAM template. It actually defines just these two resources, right? So you have the Lambda function, which takes the compiled jar file. It's a Uber jar file, so we have a few libraries in there in order to be able to execute. And it also defines a policy which gives access for this Lambda function to kind of fetch secrets from Secrets Manager. Now, the reason that is because when you're creating the connector, it's actually the service which communicates with Salesforce in our example, or it will be your Lambda function in Custom Connector that will connect with the underlying API. But once the connection is made, the actual credentials will be stored within your AWS account in a Secrets Manager. So this is a way where the AppFlow service team will pass this credential arm every time we invoke the Lambda function, so you can get the actual secrets. And that's done in a kind of least privileges way. So it's kind of made that it only fetches password secrets that starts with AppFlow, which is something that the AppFlow will generate. And of course, the permission which gives kind of Amazon AppFlow to invoke your function on your behalf. So that's the two things which you need to kind of do. And then, like I said, there are just three handlers that we need to implement. That's a configuration handler, which deals with exactly what I showed when I was creating the connector. What are the fields which the user needs to input and so on. So I'm not going to go in super great details here of how I've implemented this, but there are a couple of methods which are quite important here, right? So we have validate credentials, where once you create a connector and you click create, the service will actually code this method. It will pass the user input, and you will have to kind of validate whether this input works or not. And we also have the Skype connector configuration response, which is actually where we show all the settings and all the fields that needs to be populated, right? The second one is Metadata Handler. So this is an interface where we have two methods: list entities, which you can think of in JDBC context as a show tables, right? So we list all the tables within a database here in this specific example. And then once you select a table, we also have the service will also call your Lambda function and ask you to describe the entity. So what are the fields? What is the types of these fields, and so on. And this is kind of the way the service will call your Lambda function. Now, the third and most important interface that you need to implement is actually the record handler. So record handler have a couple of methods, right? So it needs to, and that depends on the connector you're building. So if you want to build just the source connector, so AppFlow can only ingest data from your connector, you need to implement the retrieve data method. And query sorry, not retrieve, but query, I think. Yeah, query data. Retrieve is saved for future use at the moment. So query data, it implements an incremental query model. Maybe I've mentioned this before. But essentially, it's up to you to decide how your data will be transferred into Amazon AppFlow, right? So if it's a large amount of data, you probably want to paginate this data into separate different chunks of data. And this is done through something called next token. So you can kind of figure out how much data you have. The service, with the request of the service, they will actually give you things such as what is the maximum results which Amazon AppFlow expects you to return. And you can use this to kind of paginate your data. So very important kind of feature here. And then, of course, if you want to do a destination connector, so you want AppFlow to be able to list you as a destination, you will need to implement the right data mechanism. Now, in my case, because this is a JDBC, and I know I talk a lot. Do we have any questions, or I'm just shocking everyone now?
No, it's fine. We do have a few questions, but that's fine. We can
Okay.
get through the demo and then we'll come back to them. So
Sure. So the way I've tried to implement this is I say, okay, well, JDBC, general availability, we can have many drivers for different databases. In this case, I've used MySQL because it was easy. But I've tried to kind of implement the factory model in design. It's a design pattern to kind of allows you to clone this. And actually, I don't know, if you need a Postgre database, all you have to do is kind of implement this JDBC interface, which I've created. And then this is my MySQL implementation, right? This is where I'm translating of what the database engine is expecting as a command and is giving me as a result versus what actually AppFlow expects to get as a data, for example, right? So it's a long class. I'm not going to go into great details. But once you implement those classes, oh yeah, I forgot the final one, which is actually the Lambda Handler. This is straightforward. Actually, the service team have done all the heavy lift for you. All you have to do is extend the base Lambda Connector Handler and just call it with instantiating your actual three classes like metadata, records, and configuration handler. That's it.
So if people are, because obviously you talked about this as a big class, are people able to clone the repo and at least get the bare bones, and it's fairly simple to go through this example and amend it for your own use?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, that's kind of the idea why I'm working through all these classes. I hope they will clone it, and they will. Who knows? Maybe the first one to push a pull request with Postgre, we can, I don't know, send him a mic or something. I don't know. I'll talk with my manager. But I encourage them to look at the code and have some fun with it. It's good. It's worth to notice that this is a proof of concept code, so it's not production ready. Don't take it as granted. Check what's in there. We have provided some list of things we need you to address to go to production. But of course, use your judgment here.
Yep.
Don't just take and put in production. So you implement all these interfaces. That's all you have to do. The next step is just to compile your code, publish it as an AWS Lambda, which we will do just now. Let me see if I can get this bigger. Is that good? So the way you do this is very kind of a traditional way. You just, in my case, I'm using Maven, right? So I'm just packaging the Lambda function now. And then I'm using some deploy. And because I'm doing it for the first time, and I can get rid of this one, I will need to use the guided command, right? It's going to ask me, okay, I'll say this is a JDBC custom connector. I'll deploy in US East 1. I don't care too much about the rest. And so what that will do is it will translate this SAM template into a CloudFormation template. It will upload my Lambda function into an S3 bucket, and then it will kickstart a CloudFormation kind of stack. It will create a CloudFormation stack and kick it for me to deploy everything. So as you can see, we've made it as simple as possible for you to kind of build things. Right, while we are waiting, Julian, do you have any questions?
Yeah, certainly. The tech guy, thank you for joining us via YouTube. What changes I need to use if you're using Data API, Aurora Serverless, and RDS Proxy, Aurora RDS? So I suppose this is just the within your JDBC connector, and you're filtering the code you've been showing us.
Correct. Yeah. So that's the beauty of JDBC, right? So Aurora RDS is well, if we're talking about the MySQL version, which currently is supported within this example, you don't need to do anything. You just need to give the username, the password, and the port, which we'll do just now, and you're able to use it. Now, if you want to do Postgre, for example, well, you have to build your implementation. So the similar way how I've created this MySQL client, you will have to do Postgre client. You will have to implement my interface, which I've created, which is called JDBC client. And then you will have to kind of make the few of the actual methods like get entities, get field definitions, write data, and so on. So there are kind of a few methods which you need to implement here to kind of get it done. And of course, this is an example, right? So you can decide to build it entirely from scratch. Like the 3 interfaces which you need to implement are the most important one, because that's what AppFlow expects you to do. The rest is up to you. So I've decided to take this path and build it this way. You may decide something completely.
Now AlpaCode is also asking then, trying to get an idea of the effort between maintaining a Lambda to call Salesforce APIs versus writing a custom connector that creates a Lambda to call the Salesforce APIs. And I think, isn't there a third one in there where the Salesforce is already an existing custom connector? How should we think about that?
Yeah, so it's a good question actually, because AppFlow have created a fully managed Salesforce connector, which is up there and it's working, battle-proofed. Many customers are using it nowadays, but still we have implemented a set of features, right? So the peculiar way of how we work with AWS is we work backwards from the customer. The customer have given us specific requirements, and we've delivered on those requirements. Now, when you have a different requirement, so for example, I don't know, as of today, you cannot delete a record in Salesforce, for example. Now, your use case, you may need to do so. Now, the good news here is that actually the actual SDK comes with an example connector, which is Salesforce. So you can clone this, use it, and actually implement this delete mechanism and use it as a custom Lambda function. Right? So you can extend what is already built there. But yeah, generally, if it's already available as managed, like I said, don't reinvent the wheel. Just use the managed version, because you write the code, you won't have to maintain this code. So that's kind of the trade-offs you will need to consider.
Excellent. I do have one more question, but also want to just say hi to Ken Collins, MetaSkills. He's one of our AWS serverless heroes. So super glad that Ken is keen to learn more about AppFlow. And I'm sure he's probably played with it or probably played with some of these things already. Also, well, we do have a fan from Bulgaria, Rudik's World. Thank you for joining us. And then just another one from Father Goblin via Twitch. Thank you for joining us as well. And this is about a sort of cost kind of thing. You know, Salesforce with their change data capture option that allows Salesforce data to flow into AppFlow. Last time I looked in January 2021, it was $5,000 a month and a limit of 1.5 million events per month. So, Shreya, did you want to cover this?
Yeah, I mean, from a cost, I think the limitations for AppFlow are implemented. Like, there are no limitations to the service as such, right? Amazon AppFlow by itself does not put any limitations when the product team developed that. The limitations really come to the SaaS applications that the service connects to. So for example, like, yes, I do agree. And Kamen is really the tech expert here, so he can chime in. But Kamen, I remember us talking about that there are limitations that Salesforce imposes on the amount of data you can transfer, and that's the limitation that AppFlow will carry over, not any limitations by itself.
Always have to be careful when we say no limitations. That's kind of So AppFlow does have some limitations, but they are very liberal. So they're not hard limitations whatsoever. So if you
can you zoom in a bit, Kamen? That's
sorry. Yeah, thanks. Keep reminding me. So if you hit any of those, open a customer case. We will work. The team is super friendly, so they can help with whatever they can. Of course, each implementation with a SaaS application, right? So every SaaS application has its own limits, and there is nothing we can do about it unless they are super good friends of us, and we just go and kind of tell them and try to influence their decision. But sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. But anyway, so there are limitations, and they've mentioned some of them can be expensive, right? So if you're talking about event-driven flows and so on, now the AppFlow service is very cost-effective in terms of how we price things. But of course, you always have to consider what is whether you have another pricing element there from the SaaS application. right? So that's very important. Now, I know we are kind of getting on time, so I just wanted to show the final kind of result of the demo.
Ta-da! Let's see.
So just to kind of look up, so we've built our Lambda functions, we've compiled it with Maven, and we've deployed it with AWS SAM. And now what you need to do is actually go in this new menu, which was released with the service, and register your connector. Now, the way that works is it's actually list all your Lambda functions here, as you can see. Maybe we could filter only the one we can invoke here, but that's another question. And you select your Lambda function and you tell what is the name of your connector, right? So register. Now, the service will invoke the function under the hood. It will check if that's a source, destination, both, and so on. And it will know how to visualize this on screen. And then we have the connector already. What we need to do next is actually create the actual connection between the database we're going to choose and kind of thing. And I happen to have it somewhere here in my notes. So I've spinned up, ahead of this demo, I've spinned up one RDS instance. So Aurora MySQL. And in this case, like I said, I've just implemented MySQL here. But once you create your own adapter, kind of implementation of JDBC client, you can actually add it here and have more than one. And obviously, you have to add user password, initial database, and the connector name. So I'll say JDBC Aurora Connect. Now, again, the service will go call my Lambda function, validate user credentials, and so on. And only if I return a success, in kind of, if we go back to configuration handler, I think it was validate credentials, right? So in here, the team has actually provided us with a very nice DSL language, which you can use and build things really fast. That's so you build actually the responses which AppFlow expects you to return in a really kind of easy way. And so I've returned a success. I'm able to connect to the JDBC. Done. And then, okay, we have the connector now. Even if we go here in connectors, I'll be able to see it. Now you see JDBC here with this nice icon. And there you go, I have it. And now I need to create a flow. Let's say MySQL to S3 first. So I've implemented both source and destination. So JDBC will be available in both. So we can potentially do JDBC to JDBC, right? Let's do that maybe, huh? And in here, I have just two tables. And they're just, there's the same, the same structure of the tables, but let's see how we can move data from one table to another, right? And for this, I'll actually connect to the database. Let me make sure I don't have anything from okay, sorry. Yeah, okay, and do we have some records here? Perfect, so we have some records. So I can actually connect to JDBC and get the object from employees, and then go into the same connection and say, okay, well, maybe move them into employees backup, right? Why not? Second step, mapping source and destination fields. Again, calling Lambda function saying describe entity, give me all the fields that we need to map. Now, ID, first name, last name. Oh, look, that it even made it right here to all the mapping, so I don't have to do much. Validations, we're not going to add any validations here. You can set some validation and actually say, well, if that rule has been met, either ignore this record or terminate the flow and so on. So it's a nice way to control what data gets in and out. No filters, create flow, and execute. And so what will happen now is service will call the Lambda function first as a source, and it will say, hey, give me the data. The Lambda function will provide this data to the service, and then it will call the same Lambda function in this case and say, here you go, this is the data, write it back into your destination. And you see it took 15 seconds. So that's partly because, data transfer, and obviously we have some code starts with Java and so on. But if we go back now, there you go, we have our records into our table. So yeah, that's kind of the demo which I wanted to show you. I hope you liked it.
I certainly liked it. I think what sort of resonated with me was, sure, you've got a whole bunch of Lambda function code, which some people may think is a lot, but I mean, this is only for the custom connectors. I love that you could just create it and immediately think of a use case of, oh, well, yeah, do a backup of one table to another table. Your connector's over there, your Lambda function runs, and it just did it. So I like the simplicity of AppFlow, and obviously, already when you're using custom connectors, you're doing something that is slightly out of the ordinary or particular to your use case. But if you're going to be using the built-in connectors, super easy. And now you can really, be super expansive and build anything you want with AppFlow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And at the moment, we support, for our custom connectors, we support S3 as a source and destination, but also Salesforce. So you can actually immediately think of ways how you can maybe build a intelligent integration between Salesforce and your custom connector. So that it opens up a lot of possibilities.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Our time is coming down as with usual when we've got such a good demo. We could talk for ages. Shreya and Kamen, anything else you'd like to wrap up with and leave people with?
Maybe I can just say a few things. Right. So the Amazon AppFlow team is actually hiring a lot. So we are looking for software engineers, software development managers, both in Seattle and Vancouver. So please reach out. I don't know if we have our email or something, but maybe I can quickly type it out.
Yeah, that'd be great. So
connect us on LinkedIn if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Please reach out. I'll be happy to kind of bridge you with the team. And if you like to do solve massive challenges and kind of work in a great team by any means, or if you want the best of both worlds, like doing some code like I did, but also talk with customers and doing some fantastic stuff, we also have a lot of solutions architects also available. So happy to help.
Oh, well, excellent. We really appreciate you taking the time. Love the demo. I hope people are going to see some more further light on how serverless can be cool and doing some even doing greater things. Well, just quickly, you see, we only have a few seconds or two. Up next week, if you're new into DynamoDB and want to know how Lambda can help, Talia on our team, who's super awesome, is doing Serverless Office Hours on getting started with DynamoDB with Lambda. So that's going to be really good and answering any questions you have. And of course, anything related to serverless, head over to serverlessland.com. There are serverless patterns, there's learning paths, there's videos, there's blogs, there's literally everything to do with serverless on AWS. But for today, Kamen and Shreya, I really appreciate you taking the time. I think AppFlow is a super cool service. I've got lots of people who are commenting in the chat how good it was, Alpa Codes and Vupil and Metaskills and all the other people. Sorry we didn't get to shout out all of you. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you next week at Serverless Office Hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you.